Thank you for joining the Business Over Breakfast podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Rosenthal, and we are going to be jumping into another great episode, learning how I am starting to grow this business.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll splice and dice it. So thanks, Jackie, for being on the show, the Business Over Breakfast show. Check it out on all the all the channels, especially the YouTube channel that we've got running. Jackie, if you wouldn't mind giving me an update, we're just turning the mics on here, so Jackie's giving me a little update already, but just give me a background on your company.
Yeah, absolutely. We were formed about 18 years ago, and I had a business before that as well, doing web development. And I got my start at JCPenney. I built JCPenney's first intranet for the controllers department, and
That's awesome.
that was like 22 years ago. And I was like, man, this is where it's all going. And so I quit my job in the controllers department, had zero business experience, and just said, oh, well, I'm going to do this. So here we go. Fast forward 22 years later. I had another business before doing it, and I got a couple business partners, and so we went along. I guess we're in year 18 for Atomic. I just 2 years ago bought out my the last business partner, so now I'm sole owner of the company. And
congratulations, that's great.
I tell you, it's fantastic. It's a lot of fun.
The buck stops with you, though, is the challenge. It's probably bittersweet.
Right, exactly. It's nice when you can share the decision-making process. Yeah. So I do miss that aspect, but we specialize in digital marketing. So we do website development, search marketing, social media. We do a lot of CRM action as well. I'm sure you've heard of HubSpot.
Yeah.
So we're certified in HubSpot. I think we're a gold partner with them.
Oh, cool.
And really enjoy helping clients discover new ways to just make their businesses more successful. Obviously, with COVID, we've had a lot of clients reaching out to us saying, hey, business is topsy-turvy, upside down. What do I do to get back on track? And so it's been a challenge, but rewarding to see that we can help them keep afloat and find new ways to make money online and everything else. So it's just
that's awesome.
Yeah,
I was doing a little bit of research. For those of you who aren't familiar, make sure you hop on to atomicdc.com. It's in Jackie's little name plate there. I don't know what you would call that thing. But so I was doing a little research. So you guys are based out of Dallas, and it looks like you really take some pride in kind of the locale of your agency, which I found pretty cool and wanted to ask you about, because it was kind of like, obviously the internet's everywhere.
Right.
So what was kind of the idea around, kind of targeting Dallas specifically and taking kind of ownership? My parents are in San Antonio, so I get the Texan, it's like Texans stick
pride,
together,
right?
So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dallas is obviously huge. There's an enormous amount of businesses around here, a lot of corporate headquarters here. We're actually in Plano, which is just outside of Dallas. And we felt like once we get a lot of business through our website. So we get, maybe 5-10 requests a week for new clients through our website. And a lot of that was
just drinking the Kool-Aid there of your own your own efforts.
A little inbound marketing, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, we've had Budweiser reach out to us. We've had AT&T reach out to us. We've had a lot of really large companies reach out to us, and then of course we get the mom and pops as well. But what we decided was, if we wanted to rank well for things like email marketing or digital marketing agency, the odds of us reaching top 10 on that for nationwide searches were pretty low, because I'm sure you are aware there's more than one web developer in the nation.
I've heard that.
But probably on our street there's more than one. So we took the track that we were going to focus in on Dallas, because we knew that we could do that. And so now, when you search like Dallas email marketing, we're the number one result. And when you search Dallas digital marketing agency, we're usually somewhere in the top 10, and it fluctuates all over the place. But so we get a lot of leads from that. So that was our focus on coming in straight into Dallas. There's so much business there.
Yeah, that's cool. It's funny because that reminds me, I forget who I was listening to, but they were talking about how it's really tough to be like the best lawyer in the world or like the best doctor in the world. But if
Right.
you like layer on like the best lawyer for medical like e-commerce
Right.
companies, it's
Right.
like
Then you're number one.
that it's pretty easy to be best in the world. You know, there's probably like
Right.
four people, you know, so
Right. Absolutely.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's been worked out well for us.
That's cool. So yeah, so you mentioned, you know, you've been in business for, you know, almost 2 decades. You personally have been in the space for a while. I know. Well, you're talking to a guy who started in February here, so so you know,
Well,
it's all good. You're still young. At least you come
yeah.
across young. So there you
Thanks for
go.
that.
That's good. But so I was looking at some of your work. You and you had already mentioned you kind of work within a lot of different businesses at different stages.
Right.
So I really wanted to, you know, this podcast is really targeted for any professional, especially people in sales and marketing and entrepreneurship that are looking to grow business or just kind of set a good strategic direction. So,
Right.
you know, as Gary Vee would say, the whole clouds and dirt thing, maybe a little bit more clouds. You know, what would you say are some of the primary kind of pillars that you look for in businesses in different stages of growth? Like somebody who's just starting out, like myself, maybe somebody who's like gotten a good stable position, is now ready to scale that, and then maybe somebody whose brand might be a little stale or needs to pivot, you know, something like that. So you kind of bring me through what's kind of the big picture thing that you look for, you know, especially in digital marketing there.
Right. You know, and we try really hard. You know, most of our clients that reach out to us or prospects that reach out to us for a specific thing. So they're
Hmm.
reaching saying, "Hey, I need SEO or I need
Right.
email marketing." And what we really like to do is stop and look and see what their full picture looks like. So exactly what we were just talking about. They're just starting out, or did they have something they haven't really capitalized on, or maybe it's stale. And so very frequently they'll come to us asking us for one thing, and we end up doing something different once we've had those conversations with them. And you know, it's amazing to me how frequently, and I brought up email marketing multiple times, how many people are not really leveraging their, you know, growing their list, actually sending emails to it, or actually using it in their other spaces like social media, you know, doing ads to those
Yeah.
people, or even using it in their PPC campaigns to do bid adjustments. So someone that has already dealt with you, you've already got their email address, it's more likely that they're going to do business with you. So you got to treat them differently. You got to be willing to, you know, invest in them. So we really like to first, you know, stop, take a look and see what they've been doing, where they're at. And then we always go for the low hanging fruit. I'm sure you've heard that before, because if we can get some early wins in their pockets, they will trust other opinions and things that we bring to them. So we had a client come to us that said they wanted search engine optimization. I started talking, found out about this email list that they had, and I said, well, let's start there. And so we did some email marketing for them. The first message we sent out, we got a call from them, and they're like, please stop the email, stop the email. And so, of course, as you know, the person that's in charge of all that, it's like, well, oh man, did we mess up? Did we screw up? Is there a typo? You know, all these things going through my head. And they're like, we cannot handle the amount of business that we're getting from it. And this was from something they already had, right? All they needed to do is develop a message, and we did some creative things with it. It wasn't just as simple as send, but you know, leveraging the assets that they have. And a lot of people don't realize what they do have. I mean, you're very experienced with it and well know that putting together something like this, you can slice it and dice it a million ways. So it's like, how do you make everything that you do have? How do you stretch it and make it more efficient? So that's where we start with almost every account that we have. And then what I always like to do is those aha moments. Like, what are the things that we can do that no one's even thought of yet for them or their industry or whatever else, and really make that resonate and work out well for them. We did a campaign for a hockey team where we took their mascot, and no one at this time, now Burger King's done it since we did this, but at this time, no one had growth hacked the Ring doorbell. So we took their mascot, it was a dog, and we took their mascot to all these Ring doorbells that we saw in the neighborhoods, you know, in the neighborhoods around the arena. and had him walk up there, and he acted like he was peeing on the stuff or whatever. But he just had a cardboard sign that said, help, I'm lost, get me back to the arena. Go online and register where you saw it. So we grew their email list from that. We created a remarketing list from it.
Awesome.
People saw it on the Ring doorbell, shared it in the Ring community. Then it made it onto Facebook. People thought it was funny, and they started sharing it throughout that. And so we got a lot of brand love from it. We grew their email marketing list. This was during the playoffs. And that page that we sent people to was the #2 visited site page on the site. And the only way people could have even heard about it was by seeing it on the Ring doorbell or shared through Facebook or social.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, so we
So
love,
creative.
yeah, we love creating those things, and they're not always like that. Some of them are more boring, but
Hey, boring work
nothing's boring
sometimes,
about
though,
making money.
Yeah, exactly. I know. It's like it's always funny because, I come from kind of a background in sales, and I always was like telling my colleagues and things, it's like you are tired of hearing it. But as long as checks are coming into the business, you got to keep saying it.
Right, right.
It's like you may be tired of hearing yourself say it, but that's interesting. Well, that's cool. So I guess so you do kind of like a discovery then type process
Right.
to define, what the business is all about, kind of what is it really like doubling down on what has worked in the past, or is it typically kind of like well, let's try something new that we've seen work in the industry?
Yeah, it's going to depend on that, quite honestly. I don't like to typically double down because if it's the same thing, that is going to get to a point of diminishing returns.
Right.
So, what are some things that we can do to maybe tweak it a little bit, doing it in a unique way, or maybe even just supporting it differently? So, for instance, like email marketing, when you send out a message, let's say you send it out at 7 in the morning. Well, taking your email list, uploading it into Facebook, and creating custom audiences in Facebook, then you can have ads displayed to those same users at like right before lunch or right before they leave the office, that reminds them of the message that they received at 7 in the morning, that maybe it was the top of the thing, they had something really urgent that they had to do. So it's like, okay, we're still sending out email, but we're supporting it with a different digital thing, like remarketing or a custom audience on Facebook or something like that. And then what happens is they saw it in the morning, and then maybe right before they're leaving work, like, oh, I need to take action on that. So they click the ad and then go complete the action that you want them to, or just have more brand exposures. And that's just a really effective way to support things that are already going on, so it's like we're always looking for those types of activities that can be done. Yeah.
Wow.
But other times, other times it's just all brand new stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, and it's brand new for them, right? Not
Yeah.
so,
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting, giving them a bump on, they call it omni-channel, right? They got
Right.
all,
Yeah.
all across
Absolutely.
all
Yeah.
channels, but giving them a bump on that. And then it's almost like the scrolling through Facebook, there's a lot of people that you recognize, but then you see a brand that you just got an email from, you also recognize that,
Right. Exactly.
So that's interesting.
Well, the classic, it takes 3 times for someone to realize they've even seen it, right? So if we can hit them, morning, right before lunch, and evening, then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I need to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So I'm definitely a novice when it comes to especially the paid part of social media. A lot of anything that I've done is really organic. So I kind of want to double click down into that personally, like, cause it's selfish,
Right.
but
Yeah,
then also
absolutely.
I feel like it's probably helpful. I had lunch with a guy, I think it was on Tuesday. Look at me. Yep. Tuesday. He was talking about how he has really good, organic reach. He's owns a couple franchises, has some good organic reach. They give him some leverage, or some leeway rather, on his marketing efforts. Really good organic reach, but it was almost like looking down on the paid part, because it was
Right.
kind of like what and I think before really realizing the results, and being kind of in the space of agency marketing and everything, not really realizing how that's done effectively, how that's done well, and then like, what what does it look like to deploy that type of strategy, so I'm curious, love to pick your brain around that.
Yeah, right. A lot of times it boils down to budget and creativity, right? So on Facebook and some of those platforms, it's obviously can be less expensive than doing a PPC ad on Google AdWords, right? The difference, obviously, is getting those people in their buying journeys and hitting them at the right time. And so it is something that a lot of marketers, if you're not accustomed to making sure you're staying in front of the people, top of mind awareness, aren't going to believe that they're as successful. So you got to start looking at return on ad spend and all those different things like that. But the thing that we tend to see is that once you start entering in those spaces, they say a rising tide lifts all boats. Well, when you start investing in PPC, or you start investing in remarketing ads and start having a larger digital footprint, your search engine optimization results go up. Again, they've already seen your brand a handful of times. They don't remember exactly where it was, so attribution's a pain. But what ends up happening is you'll see your conversion rates also start tending upwards. So when you start hitting them on multiple facets, be it email, Facebook ads, those types of things like that, you'll start seeing, or you should see, a lift in all of your conversion rates across the board. So, but it takes some time and it takes some effort to be able to track through that. And there's not the direct attribution that a lot of, especially smaller businesses, are looking for. They're like, hey, I put, $1,000 into this, and I don't know if I got a single lead. I got leads on my website, but not through Facebook, and it's like, well, maybe those came through Facebook. So there's some things that can be done there to help with that, taking them to specific landing pages and tracking that type of stuff. We're big with HubSpot. So obviously we can tell where someone came in initially, what pages they visited on the site, and we do some lead scoring before they even become a lead. So then once they become a lead, they've already got a score associated with them. So the sales team knows this person's only scoring out at a 70, so I'm not going to go hammer them to death because they're not really ready to buy yet. But someone maybe at an 85 or something is a pretty hot lead. And so let's make sure that we're at least touching base with them, with phone calls or whatever else it may be. So, yeah. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I, as we were talking through this, if you're, again, I doubt a lot of people listening are familiar because I'm in Philly. So a lot of my network's in the Philly based, area, but I'm going to share for those that are, hopping on YouTube, that they're actually doing this work, really well. So, you can go onto their website here, and this is the one that I was reading, the Vince Hagen. This is a little bit, it was a little bit more specific to like what I've been doing for one of my clients. It looked like it was an established. I mean, this is me reading into it. It looked like it was a little bit of an established brand, and then you just brought the internet to them. It was like 350% increase in e-commerce. I was reading somewhere in here.
This is actually crazy. One of the ones where I said that it's not always as exciting as doing something with a hockey team or something fun like that. But it's one of my favorite case studies, actually. I'm glad you brought it up. They were online, they were doing stuff, but in the typical world, you're like, hey, this is a good old boy network. It's older guys. Those guys aren't on the internet. They're not doing anything.
It's concrete.
It's concrete, right? They were selling batch plants, like, who's going online to find a batch plant. And so I probably had to spend quite a bit of time talking them into allowing us to do a website first for them. And then we did that, and they started to see some lifts. And then we started doing search engine optimization and some things for them. And it was funny when we first started talking to him about it. He goes, tell you what, why don't we just work on a percentage of sales? And at the time I was like, well, I don't know how good your sales team is at converting and blah, 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 all these different things. And we get approached with opportunities like that pretty frequently. And let me just say, I wish I would have done it because, he was going to give us a percentage of sales. And so when they sell one batch plant, that's at least $1 million. And so that he didn't believe, he's like, I don't know. if this is going to work or not. Well, so now they've been clients for, I think maybe 8 years or 10 years. And we just get emails from them all the time. Like, what other ideas do you got? What other, like they outrank, for some of their 8 years. So they outrank some of their competitors for the competitor's name. Like, so if you're looking for parts
Wow.
and things like that, we've done a lot of really cool stuff with them. We built a directory, a national directory on their website that allows people to find what's called a stationary batch plant. And what's interesting is I was on a flight. I had some work that we are going to be doing with Walmart. I was on a flight out to Bentonville, and I started talking to a guy that does all the asphalt for the parking lots in Walmart. And I said, "Hey man, how do you find an asphalt plant?" He goes, "You want me to tell you how I find the asphalt? The people who know where the good asphalt plants are the concrete batch plant people." And he goes, "I go online and I search concrete batch plants in the city I'm going to, and then I call that batch plant." And I said, "Oh, have you ever heard of Vince Hagen?" He goes, "I'm on their website all the time." I was just like, oh, great.
That's
So
awesome.
enormous amount of traffic to them because of those things, because we have a national directory that has all those things, and just a bunch of other things we've done for them. But this is a very exciting one because it's a boring topic, but we have tremendously influenced our business.
Yeah, well, and what I found really fascinating is, I mean, first of all, that you were able to convince a company like this,
Yeah,
of the power of the internet. I always say to people when we're like talking through even social media and things, it's like, listen, this medium is powerful enough to influence our presidential election. It can help you with some sales. Like, come on.
I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, don't. It's. I'm always preface saying we're not going to get into the details of that or make any comments on that, but just trust me. This is a powerful engine. But it was.
Yeah.
But I found it really interesting, especially since it's so niche as well. I was having a conversation with I don't want to say their name, but because they haven't done any business with us yet, but
Right.
we were talking through like a super specific process for like handling steel. It was like some sort of treatment that they did for steel before it was shipped out, and they were like, machine shops is their main target audience or target market, and that it was the same conversation where they're like, well, I mean, it's all word of mouth. The guy, we ended up talking because of COVID, because he couldn't go and just drive around to the machine shops.
Right.
you know but it was really interesting. I'm curious how you you mentioned it earlier too. You find something that you can build some trust and build some faith in that. So
Right.
what do you kind of specifically, obviously you did a lot here, website design, SEO, Google AdWords,
Right.
emailing with MailChimp, e-commerce site. But what do you think about, as a lift under the covers, if you will, on like
Right.
something like this? It's super niche. What would be the first thing that you'd be like, if this is something that, you're struggling with, let's try that,
Right. Yeah, I love niches. I heard a long time ago when I was doing another business that they say riches are in the niches,
Mm-hmm.
and so when you can identify a niche, it makes it so much easier to identify where those customers are at. COVID's changed things a little bit. Obviously, people used to go to trade shows; those aren't really going on that much anymore, right? But anyone that's going to a trade show and using a specific hashtag, boom, there's someone that's a potential customer of yours, right? So, go, connect with them on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever it may be, and then add them into your CRM, start having conversations with them on whatever channel you can. So if it's on LinkedIn, maybe it's a couple messages. One caveat on that though, it's I hate when someone connects with me and immediately tries to
I
sell.
know. Pitching
Like,
in the
oh my
DMs,
God.
it's just killing me.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
Yeah.
always, it's the WWFIM, right? So what's in it for me?
Yep.
So always be thinking about that when you're, reaching out to those people. But I would definitely start with looking at who's winning in that niche right now and seeing, why are they winning in that niche, in whatever space it may be. Like, is their website better? I start a lot of my stuff with search engine optimization because once you start ranking number one for a specific term, to your point of the niche, like the long-term keywords, the example I always give is a camera. So if I go onto Google and search for camera, the likelihood that I'm buying a camera today is probably pretty low. If I search for Canon EOS max lens, blah 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 blah, I probably know what I want to buy and I'm going to buy it. So whoever's ranking well for the Canon blah blah blah, they're going to have the opportunity to win my dollars, right? So I go and look and see who's currently winning in those spaces for those longer tail keywords, and so we've already talked about it. Those are easier to rank on than camera or car, or so like you just don't have a chance, right? So if you can go out and then win in that longer tail keyword space, or even start to identify the geo areas that there's a lot of business going on in that. So you mentioned Philly, right? So if we're talking about machine shops in Philly, and what are they searching for? If they're looking for specially treated iron manufacturers in Philly, I could probably build a website tomorrow and rank for that the day after, because there's not a lot of people trying to go after something so unique or so long tail. Now, obviously, there's millions of dollars involved or whatever a typical thing, it starts to build up, So, I mean, obviously, when we started with Vince Hagen, their competitors weren't taking it as seriously. Well, once we started outranking the competitors for the competitor's name, well, then they started working on search engine optimization. Like, oh, we got to do this, right? So obviously, the more competitive it is, that's where we look. But if you can get them in the top 5 of Google for that term, you're going to have some massive wins. If you can look at an existing, the other thing I've already mentioned it a ton of times, you can tell I'm a huge fan of email marketing. I feel like one of the most underutilized things that most businesses have. It's an asset you've already built, right? They're in your QuickBooks, they're in your, whatever email, CRM, ERP, whatever it may be. And that's a massive asset just sitting there. Have people really leveraged it? Like, have they used it effectively, sent something that's of value to the person, reached out to them, asked for referrals, asked for reviews. We helped a client just this past week, actually, that had a huge database, went onto their website, just Googled their name and saw that they had 5 Google reviews. And I'm like, you've had like thousands of customers. Like, why do you only have 5 Google reviews? That's how people are judging you now. They're looking at, they're going to look at you and say you have 5 Google reviews and you're a 3 or you're whatever. But here you're sitting with a massive database of people that love you. They've been a client of yours for 10 years. Have you sent a single message saying, could you do me a solid and leave me a Google review, link directly to the thing that pops up with the stars and everything? We like to include a sample review. It's like, hey, I know it takes time to write a review. We went ahead and done this, obviously change it to say whatever you want to say, but here's something you could copy and paste if you want. And using fields in their databases and stuff, we may know that they bought a certain product, so we just dynamically insert that into the message that they get. So every review is a little bit different. And then when you send that out, the one we did just this past weekend, I talked to her yesterday. She said she got 10 or 15 reviews, and that was just like a day or two after we sent the message. So she went from, just a few to all of a sudden, 15, 20 new reviews. And that's just going to keep going because we built a system that automatically reaches out to people and stays in touch with them. So that's almost always the 2 places. And then the other thing I would say I would look at very often is their website, and just to see if it's got any good conversion techniques in it. If I visit a page and I'm interested in it, do I have the ability to chat the person, or do I have the ability to fill out a form? You see there's a chat there. And that's, so we get tons of people. There's
time
ability
with a human here.
You can actually schedule a time with Bruce, our biz dev guy. And this is live right into his Outlook calendar. So it ties up. This is all stuff we do through HubSpot. But how can we make it as simple as possible? How do we remove all the barriers for them to actually do business with us? Hey, I like to chat. I like to call. I like to fill out forms. I just want to schedule a meeting, and I'm available today at 10:15, so I'm going to do it. So whatever way we can remove as many barriers for them to do business with us, that's what we're doing. So
Mm,
those are
that's awesome.
probably the three things that I look at most
Mm,
frequently when we first start talking to people.
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I know if you're okay with going maybe like 5 minutes over.
Yeah, not a problem.
Right. All right, cool. Yeah, so I mean, a lot of times businesses they talk about like, oh, you're not going to really see tangible results around this. It's really kind of a slow build, and you look at the business growth in general. One of the things that I was super impressed with was how you were able to tie in your case studies here, very very tangible down to not 25%, 26%, average yearly increase in overall site traffic, 350% increase in online revenue for Vince Hagen. I mean, just some cool, tangible results there. The
Right.
other thing, kind of switching gears a little bit more into like your business ownership side, you're obviously not sitting there and writing all the copy for their their MailChimp campaign. That's why you have a half hour, 35 minutes to talk to little old Steven today. So so I'm curious how you have gone about, you got a good leadership team I was looking at here, but how you've gone about the acquisition of people. Sounds a little strange, because they're people, but
Right.
how you've gone about kind of the building talent that's beyond just Jackie. You
Right.
obviously have the talent. You did that for JC Penney all those years ago, like you mentioned, but
Yeah.
how do you build that? How do you look for that?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and when we get the answer to it, all no,
Yeah, yeah.
we've got a great team, and I really, especially we're all working remote. We all, we're in the office. We have one that's going back to the office, but that's it. The rest of everyone is remote. But we're huge believers in cross training people and really investing in their knowledge. The classic, what if we train them and they leave, or what if we don't and they stay? That's something that we really take a lot of pride in. So each one of our team members gets an annual budget to go to conferences, online learnings, webinars, whatever else, to learn something that would help them in the business. And then what we do after they attend those things, what we used to do is we'd get together do a lunch learn, and they would share what they learned
Wow,
at
I'm
that
taking that
conference
idea.
with everyone on the team. And so we've all had our opportunities to get in front of the team and say, hey, these are the things I've learned, and this is how you do it. Or, hey, I read a blog last night, and I thought it was interesting, thought I would share. So we have a Slack channel that we're just constantly sharing, things that we think are cool in design, new things that we've learned from a technology standpoint, or anything in marketing related, or even just personal growth related as well. When we went on lockdown with COVID, one of the things I did was I got the team a subscription to Masterclass, so they all could get
Oh
onto
yeah.
Masterclass and take, watch whatever Masterclass lessons they wanted to. It didn't have to be a digital marketing. It could be whatever they were interested in, cooking or whatever else, just so that we have that mindset of always learning and always growing. And so that's something that's encouraged. We've done bonuses off of it. We've really look for that and have a mindset of growth in those, personally and professionally. And so that's something that's really important to us. And then, just helping them navigate those waters. It's like working as a team. I was thinking about doing this. Have you ever tried that? You and I were talking about a group that I'm in called Vistage.
Mm-hmm.
When they can go to someone who's been there, done that, and said, "Hey, watch out for it. Don't check that checkbox in the Facebook ads because it's just going to waste your money." That then they've learned that, and now all of a sudden our clients are more successful, and then we all as they're more successful, we're more successful. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
big
Wow.
believers in that. So finding the people, I'm always looking to them to say, hey, do you know someone? Because they are going to those conferences or those webinars, and they're bumping into people. And to me, if someone's taking the time to invest in learning, that's the kind of people I want on my team. So
Yeah.
a lot of times in interviews, I'll ask that, hey, what podcast do you listen to? What
Yeah.
conferences do you go to? What local groups do you belong to? And if they give me a blank stare, that gives me my answer. It's probably
That's
not
awesome.
going to make the team.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I find that so so interesting too. I was having a conversation with someone close to me probably 2 or 3 nights ago, and just talking about how they were feeling a little bit down about the position they were in professionally,
Mm,
and it was really interesting because like I was talking about how I get so revved up. I'm going to be like on cloud nine for the rest of the day talking about marketing here for 35 minutes. But it's just like it's so interesting when you're able to sort of evaluate your career and think about when you were passionate and then try to like design your career around that
around it,
and link up and it's what's crazy to me is like I talk to CEOs and they say similar things to what you're saying across all kinds of industries. So
Yep.
it's like if you're passionate about an industry, go find a Jackie or go find, an Adam Fidel if you want to be a roofing salesman or,
Right.
find, all these different people, Rich Rosenthal, if you want to sell software. It's just like these people, they are ready to invest in you, you know, to
Yep.
be passionate about building their dream, but you
Yep.
could be passionate about it too, it's just
Exactly.
kind of mind blowing to me, but I appreciate that. And I think it's also interesting too. It was kind of something you said there in passing, but having that Slack channel, I definitely feel like, especially now when communication changes, that communication and kind of investment in one another is like such a variable and differentiator. If people are working and they feel isolated, it's like, how are they going to perform the
Right.
best that they want to perform, first of all, and the clients want them to perform and you want them to perform.
Yeah.
So having them integrated into that, and then it's also gets them into the habit. If Stacy's sending something to Kristen on Slack, it's like it's easier that communication has already been established. So when they're now collaborating on the Budweiser campaign, it's like it's a lot easier. They're like,
Right.
well, let's use that newsletter that I sent you 4 days ago, that we were talking about. Let's
Exactly. Yeah,
use
we've
that
already
idea.
talked about that and shared it as a team. Yeah, we
Yeah.
we when we were working all together, we had a thing that we called Think and Drink on Friday. So we would shut the office early, usually around 3 o'clock on Fridays, and then we'd either do it in the office or sometimes go to a local restaurant, bar, or whatever, and just talk about what'd you learn this week. Or we'd come to it with a specific client in mind and say, we
Yeah.
haven't generated a new idea for this client in the last month. What could we do that would be fun and exciting, and how can we insert some fun into their brand to make their clients become raving fans. And
Yeah.
there's been some really fun things that have come out of that. It's like
Yeah.
getting out of the office and then generating those ideas, and maybe sometimes an idea comes up not for that client but a different one, or
Mm.
so there's a lot of really interesting things that can happen there. And the other thing I would say that I've experienced, and with people that maybe are in their career and not feeling like, oh, I don't have that excitement, I don't have that passion anymore. It may not be that they're in the wrong area. It may just be that they're not taking on enough projects, or they're not taking on enough responsibility, or whatever else. And this is something I kind of came up with in my Vistage group yesterday, was that there's a ton of stuff that's on my plate of things that I need done. And nothing is more exciting for me is when one of my team members says, hey, is there anything I can take off your plate? Or if they know that I'm like, I need to put together a quote, or I need to do something or whatever else, hey, I'll do that. And usually what ends up happening, that like makes my life a lot easier. But then they're doing something that they're actually passionate about.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, I want to work with that client, or I want to work in that area or that space, or learn this technology or whatever else it is. And then they're still, in the digital marketing space or whatever else it is, but they're working on something that
Yep.
they're actually going to have ownership and passion over. So I'm working on putting a list together of like things that the company need done, or like, just if you've got some spare time and you're wondering what
Yeah.
you could do, here's some ways that you can, grow and help the
Oh,
company.
that's a great idea.
So,
Take a note on
but
that too.
I've had many team members do that, and the ones that do that always seem to have like this zest and excitement of doing things, and are great to work with, and people really love working with them. So, but
awesome.
again, I've got a great team, so it's
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love it. That's great. Yeah. So, you've been generous with your time. We can close out. How should people, obviously, if you're on the YouTube channel, you just type in this URL,
Mhm.
and they can find you. What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything atomicdc.com. So D is in design, C is in consulting. So Atomic DC. So on Twitter, we're Atomic DC. Facebook, everything. Just go to that atomicdc.com. We're on all those channels. Obviously, you can contact us through chat or
Mm-hmm.
anything else, and we're always open to conversations and looking at some new opportunities. I know, although we talked earlier that we do a lot of stuff in Dallas, we have clients globally. So
Yeah, well, you're just talking about Walmart flying to Bentonville. So treat the Dallas Digital Marketing Agency as a win for what you could be doing in San Francisco, and have
sure.
Atomic help you out with that.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Is a good case study in SEO right there.
There you go. Right, right.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I got a couple ideas on how, I could help or use your services here for one of my customers. So we'll be in touch. But
Yeah,
appreciate all the the valuable insights that you've given here, and thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. You're
absolutely, man.
very
Well, I
open with it.
appreciate your time, and I'd definitely stay in touch.
Yeah. Yeah. It was great. I appreciate it, Jackie. All right. Well, have a good rest of your day.
I will do. You do the same.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you joining again for this episode of the Business Over Breakfast podcast. If you have not already, make sure you subscribe and leave a nice review for us on whatever podcast directory, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, that you have chosen to consume this wonderful podcast. Make sure you tune in again, and we look forward to seeing you.